Hey guys, it's Sander here, and we're back looking at Standard. Red Black is a deck that has been kicking around in different variations for a while now. You'll usually see a Red Black mid-range deck running a lot of control-y stuff. This is my version of a Red Black burn deck. So it's running super low to the ground stuff, low cost, high damage spells, and a heap of draw card going into the late game. Doing something a little different today because I've got two lists that are so very similar. I'm going to run over the Red Black version of this list, and I've also done a Grixis version of this list. So I'll talk about the main board of this deck, the sideboard of this deck, and then touch over the Grixis version. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. So to start off the lineup in this, we're running a 4 of Risk Factor, which is for 3, 2 and a red. At instant speed, target opponent may have Risk Factor deal 4 damage to them. If that player doesn't, you draw 3 cards, and it's got Jump Start. So you can play it from your graveyard just by discarding a card as an additional cost. Risk Factor is an awesome card, and I've played it in a lot of stuff recently. There is an argument over whether or not Risk Factor is actually card draw. In this deck, more often than not it is. Dealing 4 damage for 3 still isn't bad, and us being able to jumpstart it means that we've got 8 chances at playing a Risk Factor, which is insanely good. It's just awesome value, but by the time they get low enough, eventually they're going to have to make us draw cards, which is what this deck does really, really well. Because we're not just running Risk Factor as the only pain or gain card. We're also running a 4 of Sword Point Diplomacy, which is a card that I forgot about for a while, and then I saw it pop up and I was like, oh my god, why hadn't I done this sooner? Sword Point Diplomacy is for 3, so 2 and a black. It's at sorcery speed, which is a bit of a bummer, but it still works fine. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. For each of those cards, put that card into your hand unless any opponent pays 3 life, then exile the rest. Now, a lot of people will say that this is not great, and they'll complain. They'll be like, oh, well, what if you get rid of some good cards? If the deck's full of good cards, the chances that this is going to get rid of every good card we have is not likely. You're always going to get something out of it. Sword Point Diplomacy, having to pay 3 life for any card that they don't want us to have, it doesn't matter what they do. There's always a downside. We're either going to draw into more burn and then win the game quicker, or there's potentially 9 life being drained from our opponent at a 3 cost. It is absolutely insane value. Of course, I'm going to be running this in a 4 of. It's just fucking fantastic. Being a burn deck, we want to be running some burn. So we're doing that in the form of a 4 of Wizard's Lightning, which is for 3, 2, and a red. It's at instant speed. This spell costs 2 less if you control a wizard, which there's a few of in this deck. And then it deals 3 damage to any target. Lightning Strikes in a 4 of. So Lightning Strike is for 2, 1, and 1 red. At instant speed, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player. And then we've also got a pseudo Lightning Strike in the form of Sovereign's Bite, which is a black card for 2, 1, and a black. It's at sorcery speed, but target player loses 3 life, and you gain 3 life. So I've actually played it against other mono red burn decks, or just super aggressive mono red, and Sovereign's Bite has been the difference between me winning the game and them losing, because the small incremental life gain that we get out of it is just enough to get us over the line against other really aggressive decks. And with stuff like Sword Point Diplomacy, there's potentially way more damage than they can deal in a turn a lot of the time. So it's just, yeah, the black splash in this is really relevant, and it's so good. Also running a 4 of Gutter Snipe, which is for 3, 2, and a red. It's a 2/2 Goblin Shaman with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. Running a lot of spells in this deck, so this guy's always going to be relevant. Yes, he paints a target on his head, but we don't really care if he sits on the board or otherwise. He's just extra damage towards our opponent. Also running a 4 of Electrostatic Field, which is for 2, 1, and a red. It's a 0/4 wall with Defender, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Electrostatic Field deals 1 damage to each opponent. The 0/4 on this is really relevant because they're going to have to Lava Coil it. If they want to waste a Lava Coil on this, that's fine. We don't care. But otherwise, it's going to be a Lightning Strike and a Shock, or 2 Shocks, or 2 Lightning Strikes. But being able to ping, again, any amount of damage we can do to the face is putting us in front, and it's always really good. Running a 4 of Viashino Pyromancer, which is for 2, 1, and a red. It's a 2/1 Viashino Wizard, so synergizes with the Wizard's Lightning, but whenever it enters the battlefield, you deal 2 damage to target player or planeswalker. Turn 2, play this, ping him for damage. Turn 3, we're usually playing like a Risk Factor or a Sword Point and swinging in for damage as well. It's just a great card. A 4 of Jitu Lava Runner, because we're running so many spells. Again, this is a really relevant card. It's for 1 red, a 1/2 Human Wizard with, as long as there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it gets +1/+0 and has haste. So turn 1, we can play this. Turn 2, we can play, if we play a double shock, we're swinging in for 2. Or a lot of the times, this will be a turn 3 2/2. but it's already got in chipping in for damage. Any amount of damage that we can get in, or top decking this off the top in the mid to late game, just to try and go a little bit wider, it's always going to be good. It's a great card. A 4 of Shock, which is for 1 red, deal 2 damage to any target. That's it for the spells. Just touching over the land base here, we're running a 8 Mountains, a 4 Swamp, a 4 of Cinder Barrens, which comes in tap, but taps for red or black, and a 4 of Dragon Skull Summit, which comes in tapped unless you control a swamp or mountain, and taps for red or black. Touching over the sideboard here, a 4 of Rekindling Phoenix for those grindy matchups, especially against control, it can be really good. Rekindling Phoenix is for 4, 2, and 2 red. It's a 4/3 Flying Phoenix with whenever it dies, you create a 0/1 elemental creature token with, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature, return target card named Rekindling Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until end of turn. This recursive threat is insanely good. A lot of the times our burner will get us across the line without it, but in those grindy matchups or controlling matchups, this is just a sensational card to put in. Again, for the control side, we're running a 3 of Banefire. This is X and 1 at sorcery speed. You do it X damage to any target. If X is 5 or more, this spell can't be countered and the damage can't be prevented. For token matchups, we're running a 2 of Goblin Chainwhirler, which is for 3 red. It's a 3/3 Goblin Warrior with First Strike. And then whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So this can just sweep a board potentially, especially against Mono White Weenie if we get it on curve before they can get a Benelish out. It's always good. A 2 of Lava Coil for 2, 1, and a red. At sorcery speed, you deal 4 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. This is good for the Shalai matchups, Chainwhirlers, or Rekindling Phoenixes. It's just a good card. You could probably try to slot in more of these if your meta calls for it, but 2 of works fine for me so far. Running 2 of Fiery Cannonade. Again, this is for token matchups or just aggro matchups. For 3, it's 2 and a red. At instant speed, Fiery Cannonade deals 2 damage to each non-pirate creature. And Sorcerer's Spyglass in a 2 of, which is for 2, it's an artifact sits on the battlefield. When it enters the battlefield, you look at target opponent's hand, and then you choose any card name. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So this just shuts down planeswalkers. Looking at the Grixis side of the deck, you can see here with the Grixis list that we're running a few different things, one of which is Steam Vents in a 4 of, which is an island mountain, enters the battlefield tapped unless you pay 2 life. The Watery Grave is the blue-black version of it. We're running a 4 of Goblin Electromancer, which is for 1 blue and a red. It's a 2/2 Goblin Wizard, so again, synergizes with Lightning Strike. And instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This means our spells get a whole lot more threatening, and it kind of lights the fuse on this deck. That's why I wanted to try doing it in the Grixis colors, basically just to splash and play this guy. But I also found a lot of use in this other card that I've put in, which is Expansion or Explosion. Hybrid colors blue or red, so for 2, blue or red. At instant speed, you copy target instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 4 or less, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this allows us to copy a Ristifactor when we play it, copy a Sword Point when we play it, or copy any one of the burn spells, and it's just always going to be good. You could probably run this in a 4 of. I haven't figured out what I want to cut. You might cut the Shocks, but it's a really stupidly relevant card, and it allows us to get crazy amounts of damage out of this deck. The Explosion's also nothing to snuff at, so it's for X and 4, so 2 blue and 2 red, which with the land base, it's worked fine. At instant speed, Explosion deals X damage to any target, and target player draws X cards. More draw card in the deck. X damage is great. We can see here we've cut a few things. We've cut the Viashino Pyromancers to stick in the Goblin Electromancers. We've cut 2 Shocks to run the Expanse to Explosions. Again, you could probably run a 4 of this and take the Shocks out completely. Besides that, it's just taking out some of the basics. Touching over the sideboard here, we've dropped 2 Rekindling Phoenixes and a Banefire to slot in 3 Iron Eyes, which is for 3. It's 1, a blue, and a red. At instant speed, you counter target spell and deal 2 damage to that spell's controller. So this is the much needed counter magic that we'd need. You could be running Syncopates, Negates, Spell Pierces, any other of the counter magic that's out there. I just wanted to be doing the counter burn thing at the same time, so that's why that's in here. That is Red, Black, and Grixis Burn. As always, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications to see my new content when it comes out. If you liked the video, if you didn't like the video, if you like my card choices, if you think I'm missing stuff, let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep questing, guys.